People once turned a vegetable into something that could outlive them. Not for a season, not for a winter. We're talking about a potato that could sit in a storehouse for 10, 15, even 20 years and still be edible. No refrigerator, no factory, no chemicals. Just a mountain and a secret most people have never heard of. Here's the strange part. This happened in one of the harshest places on Earth. Freezing nights, thin air, soil that refuses to cooperate. If you were inventing a food that could survive anything, you would not expect it to come from here. But it did, because the people living here had no other choice. Picture a family, 12,000 feet up, where outsiders struggle just to breathe. Their entire existence depends on a plant that seems fragile, unpredictable. One bad frost, one drought, one failed season, and a village could starve. So they asked a question that would change the future of food. What if the potato didn't have to rot? At night, the plateau drops far below freezing. By day, the sun returns with brutal intensity. Most farmers would see this as a threat. The Andean communities saw an opportunity. They spread the potatoes across the ground and let the night freeze them solid. Then, as the sun rose, they let them thaw. That's not the secret. That's only the beginning. Because here's what almost nobody expects. After the freezing and the thawing, people would walk on the potatoes, barefoot, stomping them again and again, forcing the water out with the weight of their own bodies. It looks less like farming and more like a strange ritual. But every step had a purpose. This wasn't random. This was engineering without a single machine. Freeze, thaw, stomp, repeat, sometimes for days. Slowly, the water disappeared. What remained was a shrunken, weightless version of the potato. The Andean people called it chuño. And chuño could do something the fresh potato never could. It could last. Some records suggest it stayed edible for over a decade, stored high in the mountains. In a world with no refrigeration, no canning, this was as close to a miracle as food could get. But here's the bigger mystery. Why go through all that effort just to make food last longer? Because in the Andes, survival wasn't guaranteed, ever. One failed harvest could mean starvation for an entire community. There was no supermarket to fall back on, so chuño became something far more valuable than food. It became insurance, a hedge against disaster, a way to survive years that hadn't happened yet. And it didn't stop there. Because chuño was light, durable, nearly indestructible, it became currency, used in trade, in tribute payments, even to help feed the runners and soldiers who kept the Inca Empire connected across thousands of miles of mountains. An empire built across brutal terrain may have depended, in part, on a shriveled potato most people today wouldn't even recognize as food. A technology born from desperation may have helped hold together one of the largest empires in the ancient world. But the story doesn't end with the Inca. When Spanish colonizers arrived, they found a food that seemed to defy time itself. Some accounts suggest chuño helped sustain mining communities forced to work at brutal, high-altitude sites where fresh food couldn't survive the journey. A survival technique built to protect Andean villages ended up feeding people caught in one of history's darkest chapters. The same discovery that meant resilience became entangled with human suffering. And here's the detail that changes everything. This wasn't a one-time trick. Chuño making has continued for hundreds, possibly thousands of years. Some Andean communities still make it today. Same freeze-thaw cycle. Same knowledge passed down long before anyone wrote it in a book. While the modern world raced toward refrigerators and freezers, one solution already existed, hidden in plain sight, on a cold mountain, under bare feet. So next time you see a bag of potatoes in your kitchen, remember this. Somewhere high above the clouds, people looked at that same humble vegetable and saw a lifeline, a currency. A quiet act of survival, repeated for generations, that kept villages alive long after the harvest was gone. The potato never changed. What changed was what people were willing to do to make sure it never ran out.